Before the title card even drops, Darling the FranXX manages to establish two major symbols that will define the narrative's core themes. The first, more immediately apparent, is the Jian bird, or the Hyoku no Tori. Birds have long symbolized freedom, as is evident in this story too. For instance, we see Hiro discover a regular bird, trapped and injured beneath the plantation's glass dome, reminiscent of a birdcage. The Jian bird complicates this symbol of freedom though. As it only has one wing, flying requires that a male and female pair join together as one. This behavior carries clear sexual undertones. Freedom and sexuality inhabit the same symbol. This choice hints at an intrinsic relationship between freedom and sexuality that the anime plans to explore throughout the rest of its run. The second symbol is a little bit more subtle. From the sky, we see for the first time that this world is a desert, desolate and dry. This image is contrasted by the dialogue, where 02 inquires about an ocean. These two details are juxtaposed within the same shot, one conveyed visually, the other conveyed orally. In fact, the moment we stop seeing the desert is the precise moment at which the conversation shifts topic. This emphasis invites us to consider the two in conjunction, to pair water with the lifeless land. And in doing so, we are led to one of the most ancient images in human culture, that of rain breathing life anew into a barren land, turning the soil fertile once again. This motif recurs throughout mythology and literature, with water appearing as a transformative element, signifying rebirth and fertility, while the land signifies death and stagnation. Rituals embodying these ideas feature prominently in the Golden Bow, an anthropological text which the anime itself later references. The second idea that the story introduces then is this symbolic cycle of death and renewal, where the land is reborn through rain and water. The show further establishes a symbolic connection between Hiro and water. Right before the title card drops, 02 says, which translates literally to found, as in the past tense of to find. But the object of this verb was purposely left out, so it's ambiguous what she actually found. Now later, we find 02 swimming, so given the context of her earlier conversation, what she was almost certainly referring to was this lake. But at this point in the episode, we haven't actually seen this lake. We were instead just inside Hiro's inner monologue. And so as the camera zooms out from Hiro and onto 02, we're left with the impression that Hiro is actually what 02 has found. There are therefore two answers to the question of what 02 has found. One grounded in the story's internal logic, the other revealed through the visual storytelling. This duality implies a symbolic link between Hiro and water, that to find one is, in a sense, to find the other. Given the established role of water as a transformative force, we might expect that meeting Hiro will lead to an eventual moment of rebirth for 02, or perhaps even for the world itself, rejuvenated once again. Finally, with these core themes established, the title card drops. Now that we're into the episode proper, let's briefly talk about structure. I divide the episode roughly into two halves, with the ceremony marking the start of the second. Notably, Hiro and 02 meet twice, once near the end of each half. These two meetings are actually echoes of each other, which we will now explore. Hiro and 02 first meet next to a body of water. Fearing that 02 might drown, Hiro enters the water. In other words, her introduction into his life will cause Hiro to be reborn, perhaps metaphorically, perhaps physically. Later, 02 will push the two of them back into the water and hint at the concept of kissing. Now, kissing can have many connotations, but it's clear from the body language here that it's meant to be taken sexually. We also learn that the parasites are called pistil and stamen, which are flower reproductive organs. we are beginning to see the faint outlines of a potential link between the themes of sexuality, fertility, and rebirth. Their second meeting echoes this same pattern. Fearing that 02 might die, Hiro decides to enter the FranXX. In other words, the FranXX will be the vehicle through which his rebirth is enacted. The previous conversation between the parasites on the partner killer implied that this may actually be a literal transformation. It foreshadows how riding with 02 will fundamentally alter Hiro's body. After Hiro's decision, 02 will pull the two of them deep into the FranXX and this time actually kiss him. As they kiss, they are swallowed up in a radiant light, and the beast-like machine is reborn as Strelitzia. Like a butterfly emerging from the cocoon that once held its caterpillar self, the Iron Maiden reveals her true form. The kiss acts as the catalyst for this transformation, framing sexual expression as a necessary condition for rebirth, one of the central and most defining theses of Darling the FranXX. During this battle, we hear a brief explanation from the Doctor on how the FranXX operates, revealing clear parallels to the Giambird myth. Just like the Giambird, the FranXX can only function through the pairing of male and female pilots. In this way, we can map the same dual symbolism of freedom and sexuality onto the FranXX itself. After the defeat of the Klaxosaur, its blood falls like rain onto the earth. This moment marks the very first, and certainly not last, appearance of rain in the series. Given rain's previously established significance, the implication of this scene is clear. We are witnessing in miniature the cycle of death and rebirth. That the FranXX is the one to kill the Klaxosaur suggests that the cycle can only be set in motion by what the FranXX represents: connection, freedom, sexual desire. Without them, the world remains barren, for these are the forces that drive the cycle of death and rebirth. This claim is arguably the main thesis of Darling the FranXX, and we'll see it play out time and again on larger and grander scales as the story unfolds. At the episode's close, we hear 02 say,
見つけたよ、僕のダーリン。
a callback to when she said mitsuketa, but this time with an object attached to the verb. Previously, it was understood literally as referring to the lake, though the visual language suggested a possible parallel with Hiro. Now, however, she refers directly to Hiro. What used to be implicit subtext at the beginning of the episode has become explicit text by its conclusion. There's one more through line I want to talk about, that of identity. It is closely tied to the themes we've already been discussing, but I believe it is enough of a distinct concept to warrant its own section. In their first meeting, Hiro asks 02 for her name. In this exchange, we learn two things. One, names are not common in this world, or at least they're unusual among parasites. Two, Hiro has a name, and he cares about them. In fact, we learn in his conversation with Naomi that he actually used to give out names. And since we're on that scene right now, let's just appreciate how beautiful the framing is here. We have Hiro and Naomi on opposite sides of the bridge. From this angle, the support pillar in the background is right in front of Hiro, visually separating him not just from Naomi, but also from the bridge to the transport pod itself. Hiro, we know then, will not be taking any transport pods, even if he doesn't know himself yet. When Hiro tries to cross that gap, Naomi pushes him back to the other side by throwing the suitcase at him. Their separation is finalized by this last shot, closing Naomi off from Hiro and the audience. We also learn around here that Hiro feels lost. He doesn't have a purpose. His identity as a parasite is being questioned. Despite being a giver of names, Hiro himself is still a subscriber to the value structure that this society has imposed on him. Interestingly enough, by the end of this episode, 02 has inscribed a new identity onto him as her darling. We can expect Hiro's understanding of his own identity to evolve over the course of his interactions with 02. Before we wrap up, I wanted to briefly touch on the world building. There's a lot of small details that can sometimes go unnoticed that I wish to highlight. For example, the parasite uniforms that we see our cast wearing quite literally distinguish the pilots by their sex. The female uniforms have an upside-down X, whereas the male uniforms have an upside-down Y. In other words, X and Y chromosomes. Furthermore, the coats for both genders have an X. So with the entire formal outfit on, the girls become XX while the boys become XY. These are the sex chromosomes for females and males, respectively. Even before we see the full inner workings of the FranXX, we see world-building details that hint at their sexual nature. Beyond the uniforms, we're also given a few details about the FranXX themselves. While the shot passed quickly, we see that Goro and Ichigo's FranXX is called Delphinium, which is also a flower name like Strelitzia. Combined with the terms pistil and stamen, it appears that flowers will also hold some kind of symbolic significance. These ideas are better explored in later episodes, however, once more details about the world are revealed.